Hello and welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical trivia and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. Today, don't eat the werebear. LibriVox, which is a community group that records free audiobooks into the public domain, recently recorded its 10,000th free audiobook, and as part of that push to get to 10,000, I helped out with a project that had been languishing in the back blocks for 5 years? Good grief. Anyway, it was the Kalevala, which is some Finnish folklore in poetic form. In the Kalevala, the people from the village where the heroes live are tormented by the curses of a witch. One of the curses is that she sends among them a terrible bear to harass their herds. The bear is referred to as Otso, and the people flatter him in the most extraordinary and duplicitous way. Wainamoinen, the chief wizard bard, goes to Otso and points out that he cannot defeat him, so he asks for Otso's mercy. He offers Otso all the comforts of his own town. As they approach, there is much singing and rejoicing. The people, as one, chant songs about how they have missed Otso, and how they have cried waiting for the honour of his coming. The bear is then taken within the feasting hall as a guest, who is esteemed as a herald of the gods, and who is a lost cousin come home. This is a quote from the Kalevala. The Kalevala has a very particular metre. Those of you who are Shakespeare fans may notice that this is the same metre that is used by the fairies in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Well, the actors playing fairies. If in Ars Magica games you feel like making your fairies sound very strange, try this metre, which is basically stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed. Although, honestly, Lonrut, who is the translator here, has cheated a little, both because the original text requires that the stressed, unstressed be broken, particularly in some of the longer names, and because changing it over to English, occasionally he wanted to get the meaning across. Anyhow, brace yourself for some Kalevala. This the answer of the tribe folk. We salute thee, mighty Otso. Honey paw, we bid thee welcome. Welcome to our courts and cabins. Welcome, Lightfoot, to our tables, decorated for thy coming. We have wished for thee for ages, waiting since the days of childhood, for the notes of Tapo's bugle, for the singing of the wood nymphs, for the coming of dear Otso, for the forest gold and silver, waiting for the year of plenty, longing for it as for summer, as the shoe waits for the snowfields, as the sledge for beaten highways, as the maiden for her suitor, and the wife her husband's coming. Sat at evening by the windows, at the gates have sat at morning, sat for ages at the portals, near the granaries in winter vanished, till the snowfields warmed, and till the sails unfurled in joyance, till the earth grew green and blossomed, thinking all the while as follows: where is our beloved Otso? Why delays our forest treasure? Has he gone to distant Estland, to the upper glens of Sumi? After this, they eat him. In the process, Wainamoinen strips Otso of his characteristics and powers. In one translation, he adds these to his own, gaining Otso's size and strength. It's unclear if he literally becomes a werebear during this ritual. In the Lonrut translation, this process of removal safeguards Otso's characteristics so that he does not lose them as a part of the feasting process. In the end, the people give thanks to their creator, Ukko, and ask that a similar feast be given to them again. Otso is given an air burial which closely resembles the story of his birth, previously told by Wainamoinen. This may indicate that the bard is aware of the cyclical nature of fairies, and is preparing Otso for a return. If this is the case, keeping his sensory organs, which presumably contain viz, separate is necessary for his rapid regeneration. Damaging them may damage Otso's material form in his next iteration. A similar story, perhaps more familiar, involves the goat that pulls Thor's chariot. Thor eats it each night, and it is reborn each morning unharmed, until some fool cracks one of the bones to get the marrow out. Thor's crippled goat cannot be made whole again, although it can be restored to some degree with a false bone that has been made from a sacred type of wood. Sometimes in Ars Magica it's not clear why Birna, also called Bajorna, the werebear, left her own tradition of shapeshifters fleeing into the protection of the Hermetic Magi and creating a rift with them, which continues into the modern game setting. Now that we know that some people festively eat werebears, I think her motives may be more transparent. Even if you don't accept that Björna was fleeing something similar to the cauldrons and golden dishes of Wainamoinen, this does lead to the interesting question of what happens at the Feast of 7 Years. Is this the year of plenty mentioned in the quotation from the Kalevala? It's possible that what is occurring is that some sacred animal is sent to be butchered and to have its powers distributed through its congregants, who are the members of House Björna, their power to transform being given to them or reinforced for them by this cyclical process of consumption of a herald from their creator spirit. On a more material basis, Hermetic Magi going into areas where this particular ritual have been practiced may wish to try and find the ritual spaces, because it was traditional after the feasts, apparently, for the bones of the involved bear to be placed aside in a sacred space so as not to be disturbed. There are some claims in commentators on the Kalevala translations that these sites have been found where multiple butchered bears have had their skulls particularly displayed in a ritual fashion. Now, if these skulls contain viz, of course, they are a treasure, and if they have a ritually regenerative property, so that a bear is brought to the area on a regular basis that contains viz, they become a viz source. If you haven't listened to the Kalevala and you're an Ars Magica player, it's certainly worth the effort, because it's essentially an extended story of a war between a covenant of 3 bard wizards and a witch who may be a fairy queen. It's absolutely chocked full of ideas, many of which I'm stealing for this season of Games from Folktales. There are 2 versions available for free through LibriVox, the Crawford translation and the Lonrot translation. I can't say which is better because I'm only familiar with the Lonrot translation. They're about 15 hours long, but if, like me, when you listen to audiobooks you jack up the speed setting so that people are speaking twice as quickly as usual, it allows you to absorb the information over 7.5 slightly chipmunk-sounding hours.